Today, we're diving into a document called The Dummy's Guide to Freedom. And let me tell you, it's something else. It really challenges our whole idea of identity, of ownership, and what it even means to be free. The claims it makes, well, they're definitely designed to make you think.
Right out of the gate, the author hits us with this really provocative question. See, this isn't about breaking free from some external force in the way we usually think about it. The whole idea here is that our limitations are actually self-imposed, that we're the ones holding onto the very chains we say we want to escape from.
And here's the bottom line. According to this source, freedom isn't something you go out and get. It's not about gaining new rights or buying more stuff. Nope, it's a journey of letting go, of releasing all the concepts we've been taught to believe define who we are.
Okay, so the first part of the guide dives into what it calls the Great Deception. This is the author's take on the core problem, the fundamental illusion that she believes our entire reality is built on.
The guide starts with this huge claim that a secret global system of control was put in place a long time ago. It argues that through some tricky legal and religious moves, living, breathing people were turned into corporate entities, basically chattel, owned by some hidden power.
Now, what's really fascinating here is how the author draws a straight line from the 1300s to today. She points to this papal bull from 1302 as the moment someone first claimed ownership over everything. And from there, she says, the process of registering a birth is actually a deceptive contract that creates a legal fiction, your name, which is then treated as property or a slave inside the system.
To really get this worldview, you have to understand the author's lingo. So, when the guide talks about the crown, it's not talking about a king or queen. It's describing a three-part corporate power structure: the Vatican, the City of London, and Washington, D.C., which it claims are the real owners of your registered name.
So, here's the crucial twist. The author completely reframes this everyday document. In her view, your birth certificate isn't proof that you exist. Instead, she calls it a receipt of sale. It's the original fraudulent contract where your parents, without knowing the full story, basically sold the rights to your name into this system of corporate slavery.
All right, so this idea of a separate legal identity brings us to the guide's main metaphor, the relationship between a puppet and its master. The author uses this to explain the split between who you really are and your legal fiction. This right here, this is the absolute cornerstone of the whole philosophy, the idea that you are not your name. The author is adamant about there being a total separation between the living, breathing you and the legal construct that everyone interacts with.
And this chart does a great job of breaking down that duality. On one side, you've got the true self, the living soul, the infinite puppeteer. On the other side, you've got the name, a corporate fiction, an identity, the puppet, and what the author cleverly calls jurisfiction. And the key thing she argues is that the puppet can't do or say anything unless you, the living being, decide to make it move.
To really hammer this point home, the author compares our situation to the story of Pinocchio. She's saying it's not a metaphor, it's a literal description of our reality. The guide suggests that some of the deepest truths are hidden in plain sight, in stories that we just dismiss as children's fiction. So, after laying out all of this theory, the document completely shifts gears and becomes a how-to guide. It gives a very specific step-by-step process for anyone who's on board with the premise and wants to, as the author says, reclaim their sovereignty and cut ties with the system.
The guide lays out a very specific procedure. You have to get your birth certificate, mark it up in a certain way, create your own legal notices, and then formally tell those 3 city-states about the fraud you believe they committed. The author is really clear that this is a spiritual move, not just a physical one. It's about reclaiming your will on the chessboard of life. But it's not just a set of instructions. The author also includes some pretty intense warnings. The document says, don't even try to argue with law enforcement, don't carry government ID, and don't trust the banks. It tells followers not to chase money, which it calls debt, and to get ready for some serious challenges, which are framed as tests from the universe. And all of this builds up to the end of the guide, where the author leaves you with a very clear, very stark choice. There's no middle ground here. There are only 2 ways to go. The author is very upfront that this path isn't for everybody. It's not for the faint of heart or for people who aren't willing to completely rethink their reality. It's presented as a simple truth you have to just get. And if it doesn't click, the author's take is, well, you're just not ready for it yet. So, here it is, the final ultimatum the document presents. It's a black and white choice. You can either stay in what the author calls slavery by design, living in a comfortable illusion, or you can start the hard work of thinking for yourself and finding your way back to your true self.
In the end, the responsibility for freedom is placed right on the individual's shoulders. The guide argues that no one is coming to save you. Liberation is a personal, spiritual awakening, a journey that you and only you can choose to take.
And that's really what this guide leaves us to chew on. Whether or not you buy into its specific claims, it forces us to ask a really interesting question. How much of who we are is actually defined by the systems we're a part of? What's the real line between our authentic self and all the identity papers, legal names, and social structures all around us? It's definitely something worth thinking about.